Thank y'all for coming. It's great to see a lot of y'all today. I feel good today. I really do. I feel good. Does anybody else feel good this morning? Actually, I feel great. I feel great this morning. I'm going to tell y'all why, too. This morning before I came to church, I went on about a 45-minute walk. I went outside, I looked up in the sky, and I just thanked God. I thank God for waking me up this morning. I thank God for a lot of the things we can take for granted. I thank God I had 2 legs and was able to take a walk. I thank God I got 2 eyes and I'm able to see all of these beautiful faces out here today. And as I went on this 45-minute stroll through my neighborhood, I just got closer to God. I hung out with God. And doing that, it gives God a chance to fill my spirit, to fill me with gratitude. And it really sets the tone for the day. And I'll tell you guys that when I start my day with these 45-minute walks and spending time with God, those tend to be my best days. So I want to encourage y'all. I know some of you are thinking, well, like, Bob, I don't have time to just take a 45-minute stroll through my neighborhood. But I can almost guarantee you get in your car and drive somewhere every day. Or you get on your bike or you ride the bus to commute places every day. So instead of turning on that radio and listening to that hip-hop music or that Morgan Wallen, just turn it down. Hang out with God. Thank God. Thank God for what he's doing in your life. Even the small things. I know a lot of you might be thinking, well, God really hasn't been moving in my life much. You know you can thank God for things he hasn't done in your life yet. Like you could pray for things, but you could also thank God for the things he hasn't done in your life yet. Some people might call that manifesting. You know, you see all the videos on TikTok and YouTube, manifest your dream life. Write down Stop it. Y'all just praying. That's all y'all doing. Overcomplicating things. But I got to be honest, I used to be one of those people. To try to overcomplicate things, I would try to manifest my goals. But since I've gotten older, I try to live a simpler life. I try to keep things simple now. I remember when I was younger, in my teenage years and even in my 20s and stuff, I would lay in bed and I would just think about all of the mistakes I made in my life and think about situations that didn't go my way. And I would try to relive the situation with different decisions to try to come out with a better outcome. I swear I probably wasted 10,000 hours doing this as a kid and in my 20s. I know some of y'all probably do the same stuff. I'm going to tell you how I fixed that, though. The first thing I had to do was quit smoking weed, because weed will have you overthinking. And the second thing I had to do was I had to learn to be more present. I had to live in the present moment, like the power of now, like right now. What can I be grateful for right now? What can I do right now at this moment to better my life? What can I do right now at this moment to get closer with God? Whew. I know a lot of y'all might know me. I see some familiar faces out there, so some of y'all do know me. But for the ones that don't know me, my name is Robert, Bobby, Bob, Rob. I go by many names. And I'm not going to get too deep into my past or tell y'all my most darkest or shameful moments, but I will say that I struggled with drug addiction and was in and out of prison for the majority of my life. And for a very long time, I was on a very dark, destructive path. That path was actually so destructive that a month and a half ago, I was talking to somebody. He knew I was from Hamilton, but when I told him my name and he found out who I was, his exact words were, "Bro, I thought you were dead." Like, that's crazy. I was living such a crazy, messed up life that he thought I was dead. But the beautiful thing is, God brings people back from the dead. Can I get an amen? In Ephesians, it says that even in our trespasses, even in our sin, God made us alive again through Christ. So basically, even when I was doing the most messed up stuff, even when I was living the most worst possible way I could ever live, God was still there waiting on me to take him up on my new life. God was still waiting to bring me back from the dead. That's powerful. That's so powerful. And since God has brought me back from the dead, he's been doing some pretty amazing stuff in my life. He's allowed me to rebuild relationships with my children. He's allowed me to meet a wonderful woman and get married. He's allowed me to build a business, a successful business, doing something that I love. And life keeps getting better and better every day. So in my business, I do some music marketing stuff. And about a month ago, I was on the phone with a potential client. He was inquiring about some of my services. And, we're getting to know each other a little bit, building rapport. Some of my salesmen in here might know what that means. But we're building rapport, and he's telling me about his story. I'm telling him about mine. And when he found out all of the things that I had been through and all of the things that I overcame, he was shocked. He was in disbelief. He was like, man, Bobby, was there a certain moment or a certain turning point when you knew you would be able to turn it around and change your life? I was like, well, Dan, that was his name, Dan. He was a singer-songwriter from Texas. Pretty good, too. I said, Dan, yes, actually there was. And I'm going to tell you about it right now. It was 2019. I was in prison. I was serving 18 months. This was not my first time, not my second, not my third, but this was my fourth time being in the penitentiary. And I was still living in sin. I was still drinking and doing drugs. Yes, they do have drugs and alcohol in prison. Don't ask me how they get it in there. I don't know, but it's in there. And one night, actually, I'm pressing my rack. From the looks of it, it looked like a lot of y'all know what pressing your rack means. But for those of you that don't, it's prison terminology, and it means laying on your bed. So I'm laying on my bed in prison, and I start to reflect on my life. I start to think about, well, first let me start with this. I was in a deep meditative state. I'm not going to tell you how I got into that deep meditative state, but I was in a deep meditative state. And I start reflecting on my life. I start to think about all of the decisions I made, all of the situations and events that took place in my life to lead me up to that moment. And that moment was me pressing my rack in the penitentiary for the fourth time as a 32-year-old male. And I start to think about my childhood. I start to think about all the ruckus I caused, all the times I would get punished or grounded or sent to my room. I thought about how that affected me, how it hurt me. I thought about the first time I went to JDC. I got arrested for theft and attempted arson. They put me in a cop car. They took me to juvenile detention. They threw me in this little cell, and I was hurt. I couldn't call my mom, couldn't call my dad. I was hurt. I was affected. I thought about the first time I went to the county jail. I got pulled over for driving without a license. This was my first time going to court as an adult, so of course I'm thinking, they'll probably suspend my license, give me a fine or something. I go into Fairfield in front of Judge Judy Campbell, and don't you know that woman gave me 30 days in the county jail. I was flabbergasted. I couldn't believe it. At that time, I was a college student. I was going to Brown Mackie College for audio video production, and I got kicked out of college. Also, within that 30 days, my daughter's second birthday fell. And yeah, I missed her second birthday. I was devastated. I was hurt. I thought about the first time that I went to the penitentiary. I was sentenced to 18 months At the time, my girlfriend was pregnant. So yes, I missed the birth of my son. I was devastated. Not to mention I was 4.5 hours from home and had to eat this nasty food every day, and it was rough. It affected me. I started to notice a pattern develop, and that pattern was every time I made a bad decision, every time I did something stupid, I was hurt. I was affected. At that current moment, I was in the penitentiary for the 4th time for something stupid I did. I'm thinking to myself, well, I got nothing but time on my hands. Let me try something else. So I went all the way back to the beginning again. But this time, instead of thinking about how my decisions affected me, I thought about how they affected my mother. I thought about how they affected my children. All the times I would have to go to court as a juvenile and my mom would have to call off work to take me. When they would take me from court to jail, she would be in the courtroom crying. My children probably dealing with abandonment issues, thinking I don't love them because every other year I up and disappear for 18 months at a time. When they did get to come visit me and visit time would be over and they would find out I'm not going home with them, they would be in the visit room crying. And it was at that moment I knew that I would never do anything to hurt my family again. It was at that moment I went from being selfish to selfless. And that is the moment I knew I would be able to turn it around and change my life. And from that moment on, now when I make decisions not based on how they will affect me. I make decisions based on how they will affect my family. And let me tell you, from my experience, when I make decisions based off how they will affect my family, those always tend to be my best decisions. In Philippians, it says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Up until that point in my life, every decision that I ever made was for my own selfish ambition. I had to learn how to put other people first. I had to let go of my selfish ways and put other people first. You know, our will, most of the time, isn't God's will. So I want to encourage y'all, especially the ones in early recovery, or especially the ones struggling with addiction, before you make decisions, think about how those decisions will affect your family. Before you go and hang out with that person that you know might not be the right person for you to hang out with this early in recovery, think about how that decision will affect your children. Before you get into that relationship with that person you know might not be the right person for you right now, think about how that decision will affect your children. Before you go to that place that you know is not the right place for you to be hanging out right now, think about how that decision will affect your children. Because I'll say it again and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. When I make decisions based off how it will affect my family, those always tend to be my best decisions. Hold on real quick, y'all. I don't know about y'all, but growing up, I was a taker. Stealing from stores, breaking in cars, burglarizing houses, and pretty much going through life taking whatever I wanted to. And then when I got old enough to discover what drugs were and realized that I could take from people without them thinking I actually took from them, it was over. Selling drugs consumed my life for a very long time. And going through life with that taker's mindset, that taker's mentality, it always led me to places I didn't want to be. Jails, prisons, broken relationships, and even near-death experiences. But when I got out of prison this last time, I went into treatment. I got some therapy, started to work on myself. And once I got a clear mind and some clean time under my belt, I told myself, you know, Bob, Rob, Robert, Bobby, whatever you calling yourself today, you've lived your whole life taken. So tomorrow when we wake up, instead of asking ourselves, what can we take from the world? We're going to wake up and we're going to ask ourselves, what can we give to the world? And once I adopted that giver's mindset, God started to bless me with so many things that I had to start giving some of them blessings away. That giver's mindset allowed me to rebuild relationships with my children just by showing up, giving my time and attention. That giver's mindset allowed me to meet a wonderful woman and get married just by showing up, giving my love and my loyalty. And that giver's mindset allowed me to build a successful business doing something I love just by showing up and giving everything I got to my audience. So I want to encourage y'all today, if you have not adopted a giver's mindset in every area of your life, then you should consider doing so. If you work a 9 to 5, show up 30 minutes early. Leave 30 minutes late. Step up and do the things none of the other employees want to do. I can see y'all faces right now. You're like, you had me on 30 minutes early, but 30 minutes late, I can't do that. If you want to start a business, show up every day for your customers and your audience and do everything you can to bring the most amount of value to them. And you will have a successful business. And friendships, I know a lot of us will have them friends. We might have been friends since this big, but maybe 6 or 9 months went by and they haven't called you. You might be thinking to yourself, you know what? They can't call me. I'm not. The phone works both ways. I know some of y'all heard that, right? Some people say that. The phone works both ways. They could call me. Don't be that person. If your friend or your family is only giving 10%, you need to make up for that and give that other 90%, especially if that person is important to you. Because the last thing you want is a relationship with somebody that's important to you to fade and fall to the wayside because both of y'all was too stubborn to pick up the phone. In relationships, sometimes we know our significant other, they might have an attitude or they might be acting a certain way. You might be thinking to yourself, I'm just going to match that energy. I know y'all heard that too, right? Match that energy. Stupid. Don't be that person, because let me tell you something. On those days where you feel like your significant other doesn't deserve your kindness and your love, those are the days when they need it the most. So I encourage y'all to adopt that giver's mindset in every area of your life, not just this week, not just this year, this decade, but forever. It says in Luke, give and it will be given to you. So I'm going to put this into perspective for you, how I live my life today. I put God first. I make decisions based off how it will affect my family. And I base my life around helping people. And if you do this, one, you won't have any time to get in trouble or be addicted to drugs, alcohol, sex, or anything like that. And two, you'll find so much fulfillment in your life that you won't have to seek fulfillment in other worldly things like addiction, lust, greed. Can I tell y'all a story real quick? I know I've been telling a lot of stories up here, but I got a couple more. This last time I was in prison, it was right before I got out. I had this grand idea. I was like, man, let me go out to the yard. I'm going to tell my friends about my idea. I went out there. I said, man, when I get out this time, you guys know I got experience in music production. I was like, man, I want to start a volunteer music program at the youth center. One of my friends, he looked at me. He was like, Bob, you sell drugs. Nobody is going to let you around their kids. That sounds stupid. And like, I'm in prison, so you know when you're in prison, you got to like kind of act tough. I'm like, all right, whatever. But it hurt. It really hurt to hear that. And for a second, I almost let him win. For a second, I almost was like, yeah, that idea is stupid. Nobody's going to let me around their kids. But I just want to say right now, we on the 3rd year of running a music program at Booker T Community Center. God is good. So I just want to remind y'all that not to let other people dictate your future. Not to let other people tell you what you can and can't do. Because a lot of people are going to look at you and all they're going to see is your past. Because that's all they know from you. Only you and God can see your vision and see your future though. So I want to tell y'all, if you got a vision or hopes and dreams to do something, let God use you. Because no matter who you are, what you've been through, how bad you think your past might be, God can still use you. God can still show up in your life and use you. I know because he's doing it in mine. A couple weeks ago, I was talking to one of my friends. He just got out of prison. He's had a pretty rough life. The past 10 or 15 years, he's just been in and out of prison, in and out of prison. A lot of trials and tribulations. Of course, a lot of that stuff he's brought on himself, but I was talking to him, and this time, he sounded like it's going to be different. He said God's moving in his life. He's got a job. Said he's done with the street life, and I couldn't be more proud of him. I'm happy for him. I really am. And he was telling me, he was like, Bob, Rob, Robert, whatever you calling yourself today. I was talking to some of my friends and family, and they said they was going to come out here and visit me. He's like, I had to tell them no. You know, I got to leave that life behind. I got to leave all that Hamilton stuff in Hamilton. He lives in Cincinnati now. I was like, you couldn't be more right. Because when you get to a certain point in your life, when you hit like a certain rock bottom and your life is just so bad that it can't get any worse, you got to make some serious changes in order to turn it around. You got to let go of your old life completely if you want God to give you a new life. I remember times I would be in prison, I would be like, yo, this time it's going to be different. I'm going to get out. I'm not going to sell the highly addictive drugs. I'm just going to sell like the weeds and the stuff like that, like it's going to work out for me. But that mindset would only lead me back into a darker place than the one I just crawled out of. That mindset would always lead me back to prison. That mindset would always lead me back to addiction. It's like I wanted to have one foot in, one foot out. You can't do that. If you want God to give you a new life, you have to be willing to let go of your old life completely. If you want God to bring you back from the dead, you got to stop hanging out in the graveyard. And he will bring you back from the dead. Trust me, I know. Because if God could bring me back from 20 plus overdoses, he can help you rebuild that relationship with your children. If God could bring me back from my deathbed, being in a coma for 7+ days, he can help you get back everything in your life that you lost plus 10 times more. And if God can help me beat addiction, he can help you beat addiction. He can help you beat anxiety. He can help you overcome depression.